Why are you hiding behind that?
Oh, I'm sorry. You caught me in my daily look at the back of the box of the Monster Squad 20th anniversary DVD. I do that all the time. It is part of the secret to a well-rounded life with your beloved.
What?
Look, honey, call them for a monstrous good time.
It wasn't a monstrous good time. I mean, I ain't saying, I'm just saying.
This is a patron request, and for once I actually know the patron's name, because I'm sorry, I have a memory like a sieve, and I think all my patrons are awesome. It's just... this is what I remember. This is Zenith Will Rule. Thank you so much. And Zenith was wonderful enough to request a film I already had a copy of. So that means that I didn't have to buy it. And plus, any excuse to show a classic 1980s kids film to Omega is a good excuse. Although, you hadn't seen it before.
No.
So you're looking at the 80s ephemera and its good and bad parts.
Well, the thing is that, like, a lot of 80s stuff, when you watch it again, you're like, wow, I didn't... Oh, that aged poorly. Jeez.
Yeah, sexism.
They're visiting a 1-hour Photoshop. Modern audiences won't appreciate the fact that you actually had to, like, take your film to a place, and, like, this was a big thing that it would only take them an hour to develop them, instead of, like, a week.
Oh, man, the Robin Williams film, 1 Hour Photo, will be so lost on people now.
It will. But yeah, like, it was another classic thing of, oh, wow, the 80s were really misogynistic and, racist and homophobic and...
I didn't see any
there
actual
wasn't
examples of racism.
no.
There was possibly negative tropes involving the guy's black partner who never shut up and then died first.
Yeah.
So there's possible, but yeah, there's definitely...
He was the only innocent bystander to die.
Yeah.
So...
There's definite sexism and homophobia.
Seriously.
And there's also... the other thing you notice when you're watching 80s films is the amount of fucking smoking.
Yeah. Like, the dad that, like, lights up in the bedroom. You're like, not in the house.
Yeah. You can really see how the 80s went as a decade if you look at Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. Just look at the amount of smoking in 1 compared to 2.
Mm.
I mean, it's amazing.
But, on the other hand, there was stuff that was clearly for adults in this. Mm-hmm. Like, there's the scary house where they, they think it's haunted and they know there's a scary old German guy who lives there, but they have to get him to translate Van Helsing's diary for a Dutchman. Apparently he wrote in German, but whatever.
Yeah.
So,
there should have been a line or something where the German guy was like, this is actually Dutch.
But
luckily, I read both.
Yeah. So, but he turns out to be this sweet old man who gives them Pepsis. Oh, Pepsi's everywhere in this movie.
This is like Mac and Me and McDonald's and Coke.
And so he been homemade cherry pie. And then he has like he has a very intricate, World War II plane model, and
He's a big fan of the best part of heavy metal, the bit with the zombies.
Would you stop that?
And the bomber.
And you can see, like, he has like a sideboard next to the window with a whole bunch of say, I said, how much you want to bet he's going to end up, when he first met him, he's going to end up being a sympathetic character that fled the Nazis, and there's a menorah. And I was like, oh, okay.
That was subtle.
It was subtle. And here's the another thing that happened. So he's like, so boys, I bet you thought that I was some kind of scary monster, didn't you? And they were like, yeah, well, actually, kind of. He's like, well, if I was a vampire, I wouldn't have a reflection. And see, I do. And there's like a mirror in this hallway. And then one kid's like, how do you know? You know so much about monsters, mister. And he goes, yes, I guess I do. As he closes the door, and you see the interior shot, and you can see that he's got his concentration camp tattoo on his arm. But then it was never mentioned again, and I realized the fact that a child wouldn't pick up on that. An adult would, and a perceptive child on the way home would say, why did he have a tattoo? And the parents would be like, it's time to talk about the Holocaust. And I was like, what? That's actually pretty cool for a movie that's doing a lot of everything else wrong. That's actually pretty neat.
I wouldn't say it do everything else wrong.
Me.
It's got issues that didn't age very well, but generally it's
basically your generic 80s children,
It's trying to be all of the generic 80s movies at once.
And so the kids...
And it's doing it mostly very well.
No personality. There was a fat kid who was actually just called Fat Kid. Like, Even his gang called him Fat Kid.
Yeah, but then at the end he yells out his real name.
My
It's like
name's George.
he learned self-respect when he killed the fish guy.
Because the Fat Kid he always has food on him. He saves the day by like pressing a piece of garlic pizza against Dracula's face at one point. And then he's always a coward, the Fat Kid. I don't know why. I don't really think that I've ever met or been a fat person who was, like, as cowardly as the Fat Kid is always portrayed. But then he went through a trope that I don't care if it's a real thing. I'm calling Fatty's Redemption. Because it's like, oh, like Bilbo, he had to stand up and kill a monster, and all of a sudden he's gained self-confidence and is hardcore. And I'm like, I don't like there were too many old tropes in this. I was just like, Like, the kid's sister who's sassy and ends up saving the day. And
it's no Goonies or whatever, but it's definitely a good 80s kids film. No, it's well worth the being thought of as a classic, although it does have issues. I mean, I hadn't noticed so many interesting actors were in this, because you got Stephen Macht, I don't know how to pronounce his name, playing the dad, and that was a badass TV film father. That was one of the best film fathers ever, simply because he brings his kid like McDonald's late at night and then joins when the roof to illegally watch films. Oh, yeah. It's like,
because there's a drive-thru near them.
Good work,
He also,
Dad.
another, weirdly as it sounds, another Holocaust link, was he also played the dad in a Disney made-for-TV movie called A Friendship in Vienna that I used to have on VHS taped off the Disney Channel. And he plays the father of a Jewish family, in the Nazi regime and everything.
And I recognize the mum from a bunch of just stuff. I can't remember who she is, though. Frankenstein's
Mrs.
monster.
Stepford. Hello.
Frankenstein's monster is played by Tom Noonan, who, if you've seen Last Action Hero, and I'm sure you have, he was the Reaper. He's the...
Oh, who was that bully? That bully who's a bully and everything.
Yeah, the kid who was bullying the fat kid. I can't remember his name, but he's definitely been in a bunch of stuff.
He's an 80s kid. I mean, I'm sure he's an adult now, but...
Dracula was played by Duncan Rager,
who only showed his fangs one time. Just saying.
Well, some film vampires do that. Even as far back as...
in Masquerade, you have to spend a blood point for that.
Well, several film... It's not the first film to have Dracula not show fangs until he's going to feed.
Fair play.
But he was played by Duncan Rager, who I believe played the alien who was pretending to be a Scottish ghost in Star Trek: The Next Generation, who fell in love with Dr. Crusher.
Oh right, that really bad let's have it be Outlander for one episode.
I think that was him.
He also looked like he was trying to channel Eric Roberts, the Master.
A little bit.
Maybe it was the cape.
His costuming was a mistake, because they were basically... You got the kids fighting monsters, and this is essentially, if the 80s had done a cinematic universe of the Universal Monsters, and we lost all the individual films, and we just got their Avengers team up, and it wasn't done by Universal, so it's slightly off-brand. But it's close enough, and I think it's good. I mean... This is a good team-up movie of those monsters. They were used perfectly competently. The kids stuff. I mean, it was written by Shane Black. It is tight. It is funny. It is good.
Let me get psychological on everyone's ass. No,
she's gonna hate it.
I don't want to come across as a feminist, but
there's nothing wrong with coming across as a feminist. It means you believe in equality. Sorry if you don't actually think that. Look at a dictionary.
I don't want to get people whinging at me and tagging me on Twitter and then also tagging Lindsay, because anytime someone on Channel Awesome says something vaguely feminist, is Lindsay's fault. Would you get back in the picture? But, so, the mum. The mum's, only character profile was that she was angry at the dad, and they were in couples counseling, and she has the old trope of, I'm married a cop, but wait a minute, I don't understand that he doesn't keep normal business hours, and you're married to your job, not me, and the wee girl's like, are you gonna yell at him again? And when she's getting put to bed. And the thing is, I know that you're shown bonding moments between the son and the dad. You're supposed to empathize with the son, he's the main character. You're supposed to empathize with the dad, he's, the dad. But I felt like you're supposed to be vaguely annoyed by the wee girl and dislike the mum. And it just really annoyed me for some reason, because she was shown as such an unsympathetic character.
I didn't get that feeling from
At the end of when the big climax is kicking off, she hasn't noticed that her two children are running around the town at nearly midnight. And you realize from basically one interior shot, and her going through her clothes in the closet, which, like, you could just be putting clothes away. She was packing to leave. So she was either planning on leaving him that night and leaving the kids with him, or taking the kids with her. And that's, like, again, a little teeny subtlety that you wouldn't have, like, an adult would have picked up on, but a child wouldn't have noticed. And so there's this whole crack with the amulet, this incantation has to be read in German by a virgin. And so the tough kid, Rudy, who's got, like, the greaser hair and smokes, and
when he first appeared, I was like, oh, there's the kid who wants to be Corey Feldman. Then we took off the glasses. For a second, he looked a little bit like Corey Feldman. I was terrified it would be Corey Feldman.
But so he and one of the kids in the gang go to the kid's sister, and they are like, are you a virgin? Because this is really important. And basically she's like, what? Leave me alone. That's none of your business. But Frankenstein... Okay, go with me here. Frankenstein Monster actually accidentally took a picture with Rudy's camera out the window of the treehouse of the sister.
Why was the camera already set up there unless they were trying to take pictures of her?
He was creeping on her.
Okay,
so Rudy had already been creeping on her.
Deliberate.
So Frankenstein accidentally took a picture of her naked in the window. And so they used this to blackmail her. They're like, oh, we'll print it in the school paper because, of course, every principal's going to agree to that.
This is part of the misogynistic things that
has not blackmail
aged well. It was horrible at the time, but it's like a little bit more enlightened, I hope.
And she's portrayed as an absolute bitch and an airhead throughout the whole thing. And then it turns out in the end, I called this from the beginning when a virgin was first mentioned, spoiler, she's going to turn out not to be a virgin, and they'll get the wee girl to read it, because obviously she's fine, she's a virgin. And she's like, but it was just Steve, he doesn't count. And they're like, wah, wah, wah.
See, I kind of wanted it
I'm almost at my main point. But in the credits, she's only listed as Pete's sister. She doesn't even have a name. And I was like, this bothers me.
Drink.
Shut up. Like, this bothers me, and I don't want to be, like, feminist nitpicking about it, but I don't know, it just bothers me a lot.
It's a perfectly fine thing to unpack and talk about issues with. It is.
But, like, is it any wonder that, like, some wee boys from the 80s, like, grew up with, like, consuming this kind of, like, what's it rated? It's rated what? It says.
Well, it's an American copy.
So it's rated probably PG, right? Well, no, they say bitch and hell and stuff, so it's gotta be PG-13, I'm guessing.
I have no idea.
Well, you read that, like, off on this out, but, like, that they were raised to be like,
PG-13.
Yeah, girls are stupid. Your dad's important, your mom's a bitch. Things and stuff. Girls are just sluts, and they're stupid and useless. I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way.
It has its issues, but it's an artifact of its time.
Yeah, but it also suffered from really bad plot writing. Like, for some reason, Dracula and the Frankenstein in a cask are being flown cross-country in a wee little two-seater plane that Dracula decides, I've had it, I'm gonna fuck shit up. And they ended up getting airdropped into the...
He realized it was the start of the strain, and he did not want to deal with all that shit.
So they end up in a swamp near the suburbs of what looks like California or somewhere in the Midwest. And they find an abandoned mansion, but the mansion is in the style of a southern plantation house. Because that just happens. And, like, so all of a sudden the creature from the Black Lagoon's like, hey, guys, what's the crack? And I'm like, really? In the suburbs?
Well, they all arranged to meet up.
Yeah, but the Wolfman got, like, created.
He was probably brought over there as a wolf and just escaped and wanted to be kept away from everything.
As a man.
Yeah, because he had an American accent through most of it. Mm. However, his last line was an English accent. And
yeah, but it could have been an English actor who just...
This is true. However, the absolute film nerd part of me wants to think this is a very meta reference to the original Wolfman, where it was set in England, however absolutely everything else was done made it look like it was in America. Mm-hmm. And it's infamous for like Hellraiser having this sort of, is this England or America? It doesn't make sense with either one. Type air to it.
At least he didn't say Werewolf of London as he done.
It's possible that was deliberate.
And for some reason, like, okay, so the child comes into possession of Van Helsing's journal because his mom bought it from a yard sale. And she's like, oh, I bought this German book for you because you love monsters. Here you go, have fun. So Dracula somehow knows that the book has been lost, but it is in the possession of children. He knows where these children are. Several times, he knows exactly where they are. Like, they come and they steal the amulet. Okay, because the amulet is buried in, like, a thing of garlic, which somehow is still good, surrounded by crucifixes. Crucifixi?
Crucifixes.
Jesus. in like the bowels underneath this ruined plantation house in a swamp, which if it was in a swamp wouldn't have a basement. But
is it possible that, okay, the film that we have here is 75 minutes long. It is possible that the chunks are being cut out.
yeah, because at some point he ends up with these three women that you assume he abducted and he makes into vampires.
Your issues here can be fixed if they did remove just one element. Renfield. If you had a Renfield who was doing stuff for him, that would fix all of your issues with Dracula's omniscience and managing to do stuff.
Yeah, like after they come and fuck shit up for him, he drives his hearse, because of course he drives a hearse with a skull hood ornament, to exactly the kid's house in the suburbs, knows that they have a treehouse, and throws dynamite in their treehouse and then leaves.
And then says, meeting adjourned.
And I'm like, what? What? I was just...
But when you're talking about the
lazy writing, it was lazy writing.
Where they got the little girl to do it. It doesn't work when the older sister does it, and then they reveal, oh, she isn't a virgin, and she didn't want to tell them that because this one guy, Steve, didn't count.
Steve got a name.
If they did it with the little girl and it still didn't work, and the world was destroyed...
Oh dear, oh dear.
And the world was destroyed, you'd have trouble working out what part of the ending was darkest.
Pretty much. Either that or she, like, mispronounced the German or something, but, like...
That's a more likely way of doing it, but it would come across in the film as, oh...
So bad. Like, I don't mind kids' movies from the 80s. I just need them to be... I need them to be realistic. Like, there's this one, like, little 6-year-old boy who actually was kind of cute, and he had a little beagle, and the beagle was cute. And so he, like, crayons in his, like, big paper, "Dear Army guys, come quick, there are monsters, love Eugene." And then, like, has his dog lick the envelope, and, like, I guess posts it to... The army. Because the, like, tanks show up at the end, like, a whole battalion. They're like, alright! And there's your man chomping on a cigar because every leader in the army is, like, I guess, contractually obligated to do that. Oh, Trump probably signed an executive order saying it. And he's like, well, who's Eugene? He's like, I'm Eugene. Oh, there are monsters, but don't worry. And they're like, he's like, what's going on here? Who can explain this? And one kid's like, we can. And then he, like, had been making biscuits. We're the Monster Squad. And they're all like, lol. I'm like...
With the ending, it's either
there's a Cold War on. The U.S. Army does not have time for your bullshit.
It's either a case of they wanted to have a little ridiculous joke at the end, or they didn't actually expect them to be able to do that, and so they were just like put it in there to see if the studio would let them do that, because it would be a waste of money to film the stuff at the Army.
It's the kind of thing that I would have really liked when I was wee, but now I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot.
That's fair enough.
Sorry, Zenith. I know. It wasn't all you hoped and dreamed of.
Hopefully our discussion at least was interesting.
We're never interesting. I was at the psychology ball last night, and people were like, "Oh, what does your wife do for a living?" I said, "Well, she's a content creator on YouTube." You know, one guy I was talking to was
I didn't know you were asked about me. Oh,
well, yeah, the girl who was like, "Have you ever heard of The Room?" It was her boyfriend.
Okay.
Because she had told him that you and I were interested in movie and having like a maybe monthly movie night.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So while she was in the loop, him and I were talking. It was like right before I left. And I was like, well, you know, I'm Nostalgia Critic. And he's like, oh, yeah. I was like, well, she's on the same website and they've done a few crossovers. He's like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, I was like, you know, Demon Dog. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll look her up. And so, like, it's like really weird, like, you know, describing to people, like, this is what we do in real life.
I usually just say I'm a comedian, comedian who deals with film.
But, like, I mean, I'm thinking about that, and he was like, oh, what are some of the movies she's reviewed? And I, you know, told him, you know, a few. But then I think about the fact that, like, you know, sometimes patrons will be like, I want this, like, mainstream kind of thing. And you're like, I really disliked it. Like, it wasn't a bad movie, but, you know, I really disliked it. I was just thinking about that just now.
Well, we got some other interesting patron requests, and I apologize. I know a couple of guys are waiting for patron Backseat critiques. The film reviews, they're dripping out now. Gyo went up. I've begun doing stuff... I have
to say it like that. Every single time she says it.
I've begun working on the next patron request, which is Godzilla versus Megalon, aka No One versus Megalon.
Godzilla was in it like for like one shot, like literally like one scene.
But usually
it was stock footage.
Usually Godzilla will be the next one up, but the next one is going to be Berserker Hell's Warrior, which is a crossover filmed ages ago.
With
Finn and Brain. It's a sequel to our Merlin review. But yeah, we've got a bunch of ones coming up. Six String Samurai. There is
Sorry, Patron, I really disliked Six String Samurai. It's basically like, we're so precious and Indian, and we're so meta, and you just shut
Indian?
up. No one, indie.
Oh, okay.
Not Indian.
I think you said Indian. That was confusing for a second. Other patron requests, which are at very least scripted, include Hellbinders and the Chronicles of Narnia. There's a huge pile
Which
of other
I
ones
actually
which I
had
am
on
doing.
VHS
Don't
when I was
worry.
wee.
So if you're a $50 patron, I am getting
Don't stop
to your stuff.
patronizing. We're getting to you. Well, she is.
I'm going to pepper it occasionally with ones that I want to do, such as I got a script for Colonel Kill Motherfuckers and The End of the Wicked, which is the final boss level of Christian exploitation.
Oh my god, it's just, you need all of the alcohol. Like, literally, like, I'm in Northern Ireland, and let me tell you what, I was walking home from this function last night. See, someone just stole a car. No, I was walking home from this function last night, and all the bars had let out, and, like, just people were just otherwise, like, drunk, and they like eating takeaway and chips, and there was queues out the door of every kebab place, and people were just, like, having drunken arguments on the street, and, like, so this is a heavy-duty drinking culture. But there is not enough alcohol in the entire island of Ireland to make The End of the Wicked okay. I ain't saying, I'm just saying, if you know what I'm saying.
There's a copy on YouTube if you want to see it. But do some reading before you watch it to get the full experience. I also Remake, which is an evangelical film about snuff porn, which the review script should probably...
I shouldn't laugh, but I should.
The review script, it should come out at nearly 90 minutes.
She was so annoyed about this film, she made everybody watch it at Con Bravo.
Yeah, I've been working on the review of that while working on other things, so I've actually got about 2/3 of the way of an audio edit of that one, and that's a fucking massive project.
But there's one very important thing we need to say, and that... Come here, wife.
Oh no.
Today is a very special day. It is your lord and mistress's birthday.
Well, by the time they see it, it won't be.
Hush! So everyone in the comments, happy birthday. I mean, just belated, obviously.
By the time they see it, it won't be.
It doesn't matter. It's the principle of it. Oh, for Christ's sake. So anyway, get up. So Zenith, dear heart, so sorry. I hope it was everything you dreamed of and more.
Yes.
Alright. Let's do a monster fade out. Ready? It's a disguise. I'm pressing the button.